This week's mountain bike podcast presented by GMBN, and we're sat on the beach. I'm with Paul Aston. A bit of an industry chat, this podcast, about all sorts of cool bike stuff, about Finale, because we're in Italy, Finale Ligure. But Paul, let the people know who you are.
I'm Paul Aston. I'm a mountain biker, been in the mountain bike industry for 23 years as a rider, racer, guide, mountain bike guide, coach. More recently working for Pink Bike as a technical editor for about 5 years.
It's quite funny that I think that's quite a common thing across the industry. Is a lot of people have worn a lot of hats, like being a racer, being a coach, worked in a bike shop probably. Have you ever worked in a bike shop?
I did work experience in a bike shop when
me too,
I was 15 or 16. That was probably the start of really getting into it.
But you're living here in Finale Ligure in Italy. How long have you been here?
About 2.5 years.
Okay.
Sort of on and off. I think I've been here every year for 12 years or 13 years.
So I met you through racing, and I remember that you were one of the first British people I remember to go and race before the Enduro World Series, some of the Italian and French stuff.
Yeah.
So when was that? That was, the really early days of Enduro racing, I suppose.
Yeah. For me, 2012, I think.
Okay.
I'd done a season in Whistler the year before as a guide and a coach. And then I really wanted to get back into the racing. I could see that the enduro stuff was sort of picking up and getting more popular, but there wasn't really anything in the UK to go and do. So, got my camper van or my old converted Sprinter and just threw everything in the back and drove out trying to find some good races.
And you see a lot. Finale is pretty big for that sort of thing. You get like the gypsies of mountain biking. That's not the right word, but you know what I mean. Like people that just live out of a van. And they sort of work their way from Germany, Switzerland, lots of Brits, and they find their way here, and some of them stay. And there's a big scene, especially for Brits, in Finale Ligure. But what attracts people to this place?
For me, the weather is really good. You can ride all year round. So I spent a few years living in Morzine in France, which is great in the summer, but in the winter you just can't ride, too much snow. So here you can ride all year round. Really good trails, like I said, good weather, relatively cheap.
Is there a mountain bike season here where it gets super popular, or is it all year round?
Yeah, spring and autumn are the most popular by far.
Right.
And then winter and summer, sort of less serious mountain bikers, but you still get a lot of people here. It's quite funny now to see in the winter, there's a lot of German, Swiss, Austrian people who must ski and mountain bike. And if you check in the weather forecast, if it's crappy weather and icy in the Alps and sunny down here, they'll come down. If it's raining here and dumping powder in the Alps, there'll be no one here.
I've been here, I think 3 or 4 years in a row, and I've definitely seen it, and that's quite a short time, obviously. The scene's been there for a long time. But this year, we're up the NATO base yesterday where a lot of the uplifts go, and it's crazy the amount compared to 3 years ago, I think. The amount of vans that are going up there, and from all around Europe as well, pretty much, and American riders on these vans. But it's pretty amazing to see how many riders on a, Wednesday, Thursday afternoon are riding their bikes. Have you seen it really expand?
Yeah, so I worked here as a guide in 2010, I think. And back then there was 3 companies, and our company had 4 vans, another one had 2 vans, and there's a bed and breakfast with 1 van. So that's 7 vans. And last year I heard there were 55 official vans.
Whoa. And
there's even more this year.
Yeah, I think one of the guys was saying the bike shop had 12 vans run or something, or could run 12 vans if everything was booked. Crazy.
So that's just the official vans, and then there's unofficial vans.
Yeah.
People shuttling themselves, people e-biking up, people riding up.
And it's kind of organised like the way we had a rain day, and officially shuttles don't run on rain day. I quite like the way it is organised like that. But where do you see it going? Is that sustainable, getting more and more vans every year?
Nah, there's got to be a cut-off limit. And I have heard a lot of companies or people that own companies complaining this autumn that there's not as much work as usual.
Right, okay.
And I don't know if that's just because it's been diluted between a lot more people, so they think there's less work, or if people are going elsewhere. There's a lot of other towns and cities and bike resorts all over Europe that are really pushing mountain biking, opening lifts longer, building more trails, getting more shuttles, so there's more and more choice all the time.
It does feel a little bit like, it's not a monopoly, but Finale has got the lion's share of like the Riviera. There's a huge amount of riding here that you don't have to go too far down the road to San Remo and some pretty legendary trails over there.
Yeah.
But Finale is such a bigger scene that eventually I suppose it's going to spread out a bit, and who knows. But what do you think the locals think about it? That's one thing I thought, is just seeing so many vans going up the hill. That must cause some issues as well, with locals trying to get on with their normal
it's definitely
business.
Can be a lot of traffic. But most of the roads that they use for shuttling aren't very busy anyway.
Yeah, right, okay.
They're not like shuttling up and down the main strip all day. So.
And there's lots of enduro bikes, I guess. I've seen, mainly 160mm bikes, probably, like 29s. A lot of e-bikes. Definitely seeing the rise of people choosing to just winch themselves up the road, and it's a good place to do it. Where do you think that's going? It's funny, I spoke to a guy yesterday who was a guide, and he was saying that the locals running the uplift vans aren't that stoked on it, obviously, because that's going to take away from...
Yeah.
But it's weird. To me, it looks like, if you can take a van off the road, there's got to be another way to cater for these riders and earn a bit of money.
Yeah, you just need to, the same with anything in life, you just have to evolve, and the e-bikes are coming, so if I was a shuttle company, instead of being worried about the e-bikes coming, I'd try and cater to them. Maybe drive them up in the morning, arrange a second battery stop or charge location for lunch, and then just guide people around and do 2 shuttles a day instead of 5.
There's got to be a way of opening up more trails. That's the thing. Like, I've raced the enduro here once or twice, and like often when we come for filming purposes, we sort of stick to the trails we know we can get there easily. But on those races, you get out a bit further out, back and beyond. There's so many trails. There's such a variety that it always seems to expand every year. You see the trail map and there's something new. But is that like a planned thing? There must be some people building the trails. Are they full time or looking after them?
I'm not really sure at the moment. It seems to change every year. There's different organisations or different people taking control. There's definitely trail builders. The biggest push in the last couple of years has been from Pietra Ligure, which is the next town along the coast. Maybe they were getting a bit jealous of all the tourism business coming here, and they've really pushed the last 2 years and built a bunch of trails on Monte Carmo, Malogno down to Pietra and Giustinici. That's where most of the new stuff is. So
you moved here for riding, obviously, and for how many years you worked for Pink Bike?
Nearly 5.
And that was sort of technical stuff, so testing bikes. And I guess it's a great location for doing that sort of thing.
Yeah.
What about
loads of sharp rocks?
Yeah, we'll get on to that in a minute. What about bikes? How have you seen that evolve? Did you test bikes here and think it just isn't designed for this place?
I think when I started testing, we were starting to get some really good stuff for this kind of terrain. But when I first started coming here, we were, you could ride a downhill bike or an XC bike, and enduro bikes didn't really exist.
Yeah, right.
So you could bomb down on your downhill bike and end up pushing it or grinding up some short climbs, stud up, or you could ride like an XC bike and try and mod it with some downhill tyres and some bigger brakes to try and make it strong enough to handle the trails.
I think I've seen two downhill bikes this week, and one of them was an e-bike with a triple clamp fork on it.
Yeah.
Not so many downhill bikes.
So I think when I started working at Pink Bike, and when I started to come to live here, we had pretty good bikes at the time. 160, 29s were coming in, pretty good geometry. What
would be your bike of choice? A long travel 29er?
Yeah, obviously now I'm could be seen as biased as I work for Nikolai Bikes. So you want I can get at least 160 travel.
Yeah.
Travel doesn't really weigh anything, so you might as well have 160, 170, 180.
What do you think about the whole weight thing? You know, since mountain biking have started, it was all about getting a lighter bike, and many people market their bikes on being lighter, X% lighter or stiffer than last year's. But do you think, is that something you consider when you're choosing a bike?
No, not at all. The only time I ever weigh the bikes is if I need to take a picture or get a specific weight for a test article, but I rarely weigh anything myself.
But you don't feel like you'd rather pedal a lighter bike up the hill, or you'd rather just ride that bike that works down the hill and whatever?
Yeah, I just want a bike that's going to get to the bottom of the hill and still be working. It doesn't matter how light and efficient your bike is if you're pushing it.
You definitely test with tyres and wheels here in Finale. It's funny, so one of your final things you did for Pinkbike was that MV review that I read, and obviously it's one of those, it just went off in the comments because you had issues breaking carbon rims and replacing them. How did that sort of go down within like the industry, and what sort of feedback did you get from that article?
I got a hell of a lot of feedback from that. I don't know, 50 private messages, and people seeing me at the next event or next time I saw them, like stopping me and saying, "Whoa, can't believe you published that." But to be fair, with MV, they were completely okay with it.
Yeah.
And they had about a month to respond.
And
they were completely happy. They said, yeah, you can publish it.
Well, that's good of them. I mean, it's cool that, that they get the right to respond. I think that's the important thing, is someone gets to defend their product or tell you why there might have been an issue. But yeah, something in the past, I've definitely had issues with carbon rims, especially racing. Would you choose to run carbon rims now?
I'm actually testing some at the moment. I can't name who they're from. And I did weigh them. They're 1,500 grams for a pair of 29ers.
Yeah.
And I've done about 7 days so far, and they're unbroken. So maybe I'll change my mind. But I've broke tons of them in the past, and I just never really see the point. They're either really expensive, really stiff, or just too fragile. And for me and my kind of riding, the alloy wheels always.
That's it. They suit definitely some type of riding. Of course, cross-country riders probably using them. I think, what do you think about them being wider? That's got to help. Gone are the old days of like your 25mm wide rims, carbon rims. Yeah,
wider does help, but also they generally get stiffer and stiffer the wider you make them.
Right. Okay.
And the bigger the box section, the stiffer they get. Really interested in the new Zip wheels.
Yeah, right. With the
synthesis.
The ankle or elbow, they call them, don't they? So sort of twist. Yeah.
If you get one of those Zip rims in your hands, you can almost like twist it in your hands. And that's the normal carbon wheels, just solid. Right.
Okay. And the stiffer isn't always better, as we know, but you definitely, you want your wheel probably more than anything to sort of mould a little bit as you ride around terrain.
Yeah, I've heard really good stuff about the Zip wheels. Some people say it's almost feels like you have a puncture in some areas.
Yeah, right.
Like you're bombing into rock sections and expecting to like ping off things, and it's just almost feels like a puncture because it's so compliant. But I haven't tried any yet.
So what is your role now at Nikolai?
Wow. So it's a really small company, so there's a whole range of roles. I guess brand ambassador would be the main one.
Yeah.
So this summer, or this year since April, I've been taking members of the public out on test rides, people who are interested in a Nikolai. Maybe they're not sure about the geometry or which size they want to get, or maybe they've never seen one in the flesh. I can meet up with them and set the bike up for them, take them for a ride.
Nikolai, one of those companies that have really sort of pushed hard on changing geometry, and you look at the shape of a Nikolai bike, it's sort of where everyone's going, but where do you think that stops? Like,
I can't see, and I think the guys at Nikolai will agree that, and at Geometron in the UK, they'll agree that we've pretty much hit the limit.
Okay,
right. Like a few of us have tried going past the limit and different angles, and we've ended up coming back to sort of
What would you choose then, as far as, you know, reach is a big one for me. So let's say reach and head angle, what would you have? Or
So
what
my
do you
bike is 515 reach.
Okay.
I have been riding the longer one, the extra large, which is 535.
How tall are you? You're pretty tall.
185
Okay.
with 195 monkey arms.
Okay.
A plus 10 centimetre ape index.
Whoa. Yeah. Don't know my ape index.
It's really easy to touch my toes. Everyone thinks I'm really flexible. But
And what about head angle? Would you think slacker's always better? Or say, again, it comes down to a lot of different things, like fork offset has changed. You know, it's been moving around quite a lot the last couple of years as well. So shorter fork offsets.
Yeah, so my bike is 62-degree head angle, roughly.
Whoa, yeah, that's pretty slack.
But yeah, 44mm offset, 180 fork, and a 35mm stem. But I've also been running the SQ Lab 16-degree back sweep bars.
Okay, right.
Almost like shopper bike handlebars.
Oh, yeah.
So I've been measuring from the centre of my grips, running like a string line over the steerer tube. And if you run a line, that line, it's almost exactly in the centre of the steerer tube. So you get really sensitive steering.
Right.
So even though it's really slack and people think it's going to be lazy and long, you've got the most sensitive steering because that line's dead
That's
in the
pretty
centre of
interesting.
the
So
steering.
your reach is exactly your reach, because that's where your hands are, right in the centre of the steering.
Yeah,
pretty
almost. Obviously it changes a little bit with the head angle and the bar height.
much. Yeah.
Yeah, when you can get the steering like that, it feels incredible, really sensitive. You've got one hand moving back while the other hand's moving forward.
Right.
Rather than with a longer stem, you're sort of moving
Yeah, right.
in like an arc, where this is
That's interesting.
pivoting on the turning point.
What about mullet bikes? You've seen them a lot. We saw it at the EWS with Martin Mays, and I think almost until you could ride a 29er.
Yeah.
But then we've seen it been really popular and work on the Downhill World Cup.
Yeah.
What's your opinion on mullet bikes?
I've been riding that the last few weeks. I've rode it a lot over the last few years on e-bikes. I think if you're a racer and your sponsor doesn't have a 29er, it's a great idea.
It's easy to just stick a fork and a wheel on.
Because at least having the front wheel, the bigger front wheel, I'm sure it's faster, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Everyone will agree. If you're a shorter rider, it's a good idea. So like Loic Bruni's running
Yeah.
the mix. If your bike doesn't corner very well, it improves cornering,
Okay.
I think. But yeah, I've been riding both. I'm mostly happy with the 29. Our bikes corner really well. You can sort of make it a bit better than mullet, but yeah, I prefer just to keep it.
And that would be
Two
a
big
29er bike where you just drop a smaller wheel in the back.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Or with our bikes, you can adjust it so we can test.
Yeah.
The exact same bike, same frame, same suspension. Change the wheel, change the little mutator chips,
Yeah,
and keep
right.
everything the same.
It's interesting. Like this week I've been riding my Mega 27.5 for 3 days, and I jumped on my Canyon Strive, and the Strive feels great. Like I love both those bikes, but riding some of the trails there, I was like, this Strive feels brilliant. Like 29, just roll over. But then like I rode little Champery, and it was more not necessarily the steep bits. It's more soaking up bumps where like I'm 5'10", so I'm pretty average height, and I will start rubbing my arse on the back tyre. But I guess half of that is just because I'm not used to it, so after a while I get used to it. But it sometimes feels like it limits me a little bit. It's hard to know where the cut-off point is for height, or if it's just a case of getting used to riding that bike.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of other factors involved. I've only had that problem on downhill bikes.
Yeah.
Normally, casing jumps
Right.
really hard.
Yeah.
And then when the bike's bottomed out, it's got so much travel that rear wheel really gets close to it.
Right, yeah.
And
Never
then,
thought about that.
like, obviously trying to absorb the impact. And
I know that's what happened with G when did he break his pelvis at Fort William? I think his first time he was riding a 29, a downhill bike, and literally first jump, tiny jump, but I think actually not bottoming out, just soaking up, and he stuck his arse into rear tyre and boom, job done. So
yeah, I had a couple of those, like casing the jump. And then
yeah.
when the tyre hits your ass, it like breaks. the
Stops,
tyre,
yeah.
And then it's the same as pulling your brake in the air
Yeah.
when you start heading
Whoa,
towards the front door.
gnarly. What about e-bikes? I love it. I sort of went through a phase of really loving it and only riding it, and now it's like it's almost on the back burner a little bit. I'm back to enjoying pedaling my bike.
You must be lazy.
I feel like that is fading away, that whole like cheetah bike thing, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
You can, if you do want to be lazy, you can use them to be lazy. But
Yeah.
I found in riding with other people that everyone seems to put in the same amount of effort as they would on a normal bike.
Yeah.
So if you're someone who pushes really hard on the climbs on a normal bike, you're not going to jump on an e-bike and just cruise up and keep your heart rate low. You're going to push up and try and get up more difficult climbs, or go up them faster, or do more laps. I love e-bikes. I ride them.
What sort of, percentage-wise, e-bikes to normal bikes do you ride?
At the moment, not many e-bikes, because my e-bikes got stolen from the Nikolai factory 2 weeks ago. So just normal bikes at the moment. But when my new bike arrives, probably 50-50.
Yeah. I always think this is a great place for it, for winching yourself up, or just going out on a big day, like, riding an eco and just getting out there a bit further maybe than you would.
Yeah, I like to start with, I really like just doing laps, because you could do more runs. Sometimes I'd like take a backpack with 2 more batteries and do like, I think one day I did 4 runs to the NATO base and back.
Yeah.
I think that was 98 kilometers.
Whoa.
In 5 hours, and that's, if anyone thinks e-bikes are lazy, do that. And the 4th time you're going up there, even with a battery, you're like...
And coming down, it's a physical thing. Like, I like the weight of an e-bike for bombing down the hills, but it does feel like my body's getting a workout rather compared to a normal bike. And you're seeing the wave of people coming on e-bikes here?
Yeah, there's a lot more people coming on the e-bikes. Still less, I'm going to call them serious riders, more recreational riders, older riders that are using them, but more and more serious riders, younger riders, racers are starting to use them.
Makes you wonder how tourism is going to embrace e-bikes, the whole flying with them, and you sort of need to rent a battery and see how that changes.
Yeah.
And Nikolai as well. So have they got a belt drive?
Yeah, we've got 2 options. We've got the normal chain drive with a derailleur, or a roll-off 14-speed gear hub with a belt drive, Gates carbon drive.
It's cool to see Nikolai. Like, they built Martin's Random Tandem, and that is such a beast of a thing to make. So where are they based?
They're based in Eltzer, which is a tiny little village near to Hanover, Hildesheim. Hanover's the closest city, about 1 hour and a half away. And
they're pretty open to ideas, are they, of like what you think, how they could potentially improve, or?
Yeah, so like we talked a little bit earlier about geometry, with a current bike, you can adjust it to go over the extreme to the extreme.
Yeah.
And I think we've all pretty much hit the limits of that. We're trying out a few different things with bottom bracket height and wheel sizes, but that's pretty much finished now. So we are working on a few more projects for next year that are really interesting, but
top secret.
Top secret. I don't know what I can say, but let's just say gearbox related.
Right. Okay. Interesting. It's been like gearbox has been on the back burner forever now, really, and people want to see it. It's just not really happened.
Yeah.
What do you think is the next big thing, if other than gearboxes?
Apart from gearboxes?
Yeah.
I think we settled down on wheel size.
Yeah.
I think that there's still a few more years to go in improving geometry from other brands that are catching up. Yeah, you see it 1 or 2 degrees sort of per year, per product cycle. Our bikes have been essentially the same for 5 years now.
Yeah.
I guess more e-bikes and some gearbox solution. Derailleurs are absolutely incredible at the moment.
Yeah.
The way they shift, the way they are pretty reliable. Electronic shifting, weight, efficiency is all unbelievable job that these big companies, SRAM, Shimano, have done. But I still think it's just in the wrong place.
It's funny,
off the back of the bike
I haven't broken one for a long time, but You see some people, really clumsy people like Jack stood behind the camera, who does break them. And like he fell off his e-bike, and you can see the dirt on the rear mech where it's just slammed into the ground and bent the hanger. So, clumsy people will always break them.
Yeah, I snapped one last week. That was a 30-minute walk home.
Yeah, not cheap as well, I guess.
Not cheap, yeah.
So what's the future for you? Staying in Finale, or do you see yourself back in Dudley?
Probably not going to go back to Dudley. I'm actually going back on Monday to the Black Country, Peaky Blinders territory.
Yeah.
I'm going to try and stay here. See what happens with Brexit.
Yeah, right.
I might have to move back to a cave.
Whoa.
One of the caves in Dudley and live there.
Who knows, on that note. Cheers, Paul. This podcast is available on YouTube, Stitcher, maybe not. These are iTunes, Spotify, all the great podcast providers. Right, catch you next time.